everybody. Once again, I'm Lee McCracken Jr., aka Zorval Chan Mustang Guru. We have Mars Video Cat here, and today is bi-weekly discussion. First off, I am not talking about Torg, except to say that it's because we did not have an adventure last week. Now, Wednesday, today's Monday. Wednesday, we will be live streaming Act 3 of the Relics of Power Redux. So in that, we are going to Isle. So be sure to watch that on Roll Hit Die, the Twitch channel, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific, and then it'll be uploaded to YouTube later. Tomorrow will be Torque Tuesday, so that's when I will bring up actual Torque stuff. But today there was no Torque, so adventure. So this is usually what I use to talk about the adventures and thoughts and ideas I've had after the adventure or during the adventures. So Pathfinder went pretty decently. That was 2 Sundays ago. We're going like researching in the real world, researching these books, and then with the information we find in these books, we're able to go to the dream world, and we're trying to collect things right now. So my character is completely not a research person. I have 0 knowledges, and so in the daytime, people are kind of like, oh, you're getting bored and stuff, and it's just, well, you know, it's not my time to shine. When we get into the battles and stuff, that's where my character is, or perhaps talking, coming up with plans, whether or not combat related, stuff like that is conversation. The conversation in combat is where my character kind of shines, and that not necessarily research. So that's fine with me. Let the people who have all those skill points that put into different knowledges, let them have their moment to do things. So that's fine. But having said that, there's not much more with Pathfinder that I'm thinking about. A couple weeks ago, I was thinking about how Pathfinder healing is very similar. Actually, I kind of how to say, it was a surprise that my view on Pathfinder healing and Palladium first edition healing kind of did the same thing, where at the beginning a lot of times it's very hard to heal, it's very easy to die, and then there comes to a point, whether through magic items such as Cure Light Wounds Wand, which is the most iconic, I guess, for Pathfinder, or through other means, or in Palladium, when if you have a priest or a healer and you're able at 2nd level to start healing, basically, if you're a priest, every other melee round. So at least in combat, you still might be stressed and things might be hard pressed, but outside of combat, it just kind of heal up between combat. So that was kind of my Pathfinder last week. I really didn't have that. So the 2 things I want to talk about more are Earthdawn. Earthdawn, we dealt with our first permanent death of a character. So I say permanent death because even though Earthdawn is kind of a little more gritty, and it's not the like make 3 saving throws before you die and you come back like modern D&D, whether it's 4th or 5th edition, or spells where resurrection is easy and things like that. Earthdawn can be a little more grittier, and because of that, there are things like last chance salves and absorb blow charms and things like that that can bring people back or keep them from dying. And our Mars found a bottle cap, so I'm going to toss that over so he can have something to play with while I do this video. Sorry. Things to keep the cat entertained. So the first person who died was Runic, which is our elf Beastmaster, and we had it in the party with the starting funds. We kind of the game master allowed us to kind of pool resources, gave us little resources because we wouldn't be getting to a town for a while. So we got 1 last chance salve, and he got that within, I think, maybe the third the third session that we had. And then I believe it was one session after that, we fought, and my character died. And my character was kind of saved from dying through a thread item. I link basically one of the conditions of the first rank of threading to it is either killing somebody with that or while that the dagger was in possession, or being killed while the dagger was in possession. And my character was doing item history on that dagger, so my character was carrying it, and I was able to use 200 legend points to link myself and thread weave myself and keep myself alive. Well, this time showed what explosions can do, and when explosions with dice happen to a party member, or if a party member rolls really well, it's like, yeah! And then there's sometimes where explosions just go completely against you. And it was kind of interesting because we have 4 upfront melee combatants, and 2 out of those I would have considered to be more of the definitely combat. And while I say we have 4 melee combatants, but 2 definitely, is because the 2 definitely are the warrior and the swordmaster, who they have weapons, high durability, and will want to get up in front of whatever they're fighting. The other 2, sort of, because one is a cavalryman, and we have a windling that's riding on a zoke, and to take advantage of charging, the windling kind of has to do some split movements, and has a possibility when he hits with his sword to the sword knock away. So he's kind of a every other round type, or if he's in there every round, he's not yet getting full advantage of what he can do. It's still a great character concept. He can fly around. He's done some pretty good damage and stuff like that. So it's a viable character in every sense of the word. But since his character is more motion based, I don't really consider that you're standing and not just giving damage, but you're presenting yourself as a target. And the other one is a Beastmaster, who's the Beastmaster and the Wolf. And honestly, the Wolf at this point seems to be hitting more and doing damage more. But the Beastmaster is an elf, doesn't really have really good armor, so has been knocked unconscious 3 or 4 times, was dead and brought back with the last chance salve. So there are instances where that Beastmaster yet, because we are still first circle, isn't to the point where it's really a taking damage as well as dishing damage. And then my character is a weaponsmith who I pretty much learned I am not at this point I take damage. I can annoy things. I can sometimes hit well. Sometimes I hit well and still don't do damage. But even with my mobility of flying around and having a windling bonus, I'm not wearing heavy armor right now. So if I get hit, I get hurt. So I'm kind of started to go defensively from the death. I'm trying to learn from that, both out of character and in character. So that's always fun when the 2 kind of mesh. But in Earthdawn, our swordmaster actually died. So one of the up close tanky type people died, and that went from not hurt at all to completely dead without any. We had no methods of bringing that character back. And basically, it was player error. As a fellow player, I have to admit that this was a player error. Basically, we were going down a ravine, and the warrior, who has been thinking about getting the tactics talent, which is you come up with a plan, you tell people your plan, and if the people follow through with the plan, you get bonuses for it, which is a really cool role-playing concept. But if people go against the plan, then they don't get the bonuses for it. Makes sense. We were looking down into kind of like a gully area, and me and the other windling, our 2 windlings, flew above to see what was going on, and there was a bear that looked like it was really skinny and starving and scrounging for food, not having very much luck. And the warrior came up with a plan of, hey, windlings, go down aggravated a little and kind of fly and maybe lead it away so we don't have to fight this bear. So we roll an ish, and my windling was looking at a different area, but the windling that was right there by the bear didn't fly low enough. So the bear kind of looked up, but then it had no chance of hitting it. So then it kind of was like, that windling up there is way too far away. Well, then the orc swordsmaster rushes into combat completely against the plan. Now, again, our warrior does not have tactics, but the warrior was talking about getting tactics, and after that is like, what's the point of getting tactics if the very first action, or second action, I guess, because the windling went first, if the second action of a combat, one particular character's first action is to go against the plan. That the swordmaster went down there, did not hit the bear, if I recall correctly, and the bear then proceeded to destroy the swordmaster. It rolled really well to hit. I think it got something like 3 successes, and then it rolled the dice for damage. And its dice rolling for damage was like, I believe it was a d20 plus 2d6. And the d20 was only a 9, but the 2d6 exploded 5 times. The one die, it was 8, 8, 8. So 3 explosions, and then something like a 6 or a 7. And then the other die was an 8, 8, and then something else. So we counted up, there were 5 explosions. We play on Roll20, so you can hover over it and get the readout of what everything exploded. Did something like 55 points of damage, and right now I don't recall if that was before or after armor, but completely just, you're perfectly healed to dead. Because one of the things this adventure was, it was the very first time we ever started a role-playing session in Earthdawn with these characters that somebody wasn't hurt, even including the first adventure, because we were in a crashed airship, and the crash of the airship hurt us all to begin with. So this was the first time we all were starting completely healed up, no wounds, no damage, full group of people, and the orc just dies. With our archer, our elementalist, and the cavalrymen doing a charge, we were able to take out the bear pretty soon after that, but that bear's first attack just destroyed. I was the one holding the knife, so the knife wasn't able to get that character back. We didn't have any last chance salves, so the orc swordmaster Crench is no more. The player took it well, and we should be meeting up with, and this is out of character knowledge, of course, because we haven't actually met the new character, but we're going to meet up with I believe a Siskrang troubadour, so that should be fun, kind of going don't want to get into combat now that I've been destroyed, which I can understand. So, but that was actually really fun. And something that I've been listening to, the Earthdawn Survival Guide podcasts. If you're into Earthdawn, or you're curious about Earthdawn 4th edition, there's an excellent podcast out there, Earthdawn Survival Guide. Check that out. And one of the things in their most recent adventure or their most recent podcast, I'll talk about tomorrow, but it's an interesting thing that is used in Earthdawn that I'm thinking about porting over to Torg, which is really interesting because Earthdawn and Torg are similar in the fact that they're 90s games that have a really, really dedicated fan base. And the current edition rules are close to the original edition rules. And the fan base is really like, it's kind of a niche, but the fan base is really strong, very positive, and things like that. But the systems, and they both were designed in parts by the same people. One of them being Greg Gordon, who participated. I don't know how much Earthdawn he participated in it, but I know he was in part of the developing and designing of the game. And he was one of the co-designers of Torg, so that's really interesting. But Earthdawn is a game that normally I hate downtime. I hate buying things, and a lot of people usually do. And it's kind of like, oh, like I have my Pathfinder book here, just like, oh, the game master is like, just buy whatever it says in here, it's that cost type thing. And in Toward Eternity, it goes so far as to have requisitions and buying just be based off of, do you have the money and can you make a roll? If you have the money, you can make a roll to Streetwise that it's available, spend the money and get it, that type of thing. Whereas Earthdawn is really like, here's the percentage you get, here's what haggling done, here's what downtime is. If you want to make armor, because I'm a weaponsmith, if you want to make weapons, if you want to forge armor, if you want to go up circles, if you want to learn skills, if you want to raise your talents, all of these take time, as well as just the legend points, experience points, advancement currency. And that's something that I actually like really, 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 really get excited and get really into detail with Earthdawn, and I love it. And in my, I don't have that book here, but I have a calendar that I keep track of days, and I have my notes where it's like, on this day I get to make this roll against item history, and I really love that aspect and that bookkeeping when it comes to Earthdawn. And it's something that in most systems I just either wave it away or don't care for it. Like when I do Torg, it's just what do you want to do? You want to get anything? Yes, okay, give me a roll, see if you get it, and move on. And in between acts, it's just like, whoop, whatever time passes just passes between acts. Where Earthdawn, I really want to get into that nitty gritty and counting silver and rations and arrows and all that type of stuff. So I just think that that's interesting, because a lot of people, they like one way or the other, and depends on the game for me. And that's what I'm finding a lot about myself, learning about myself as a older gamer. What the nostalgia, was that stuff true or not? And it's kind of like, well, it depends. What's the game? What's the system? Who, what I'm playing with? What's the goals and stuff like that? So that was Earthdawn, our first character permanent death. So that player will be making a new character, and we're moving on from there. Then last night we did Palladium, which sometime hopefully this week I'll be able to listen through to make sure there's no crazy sounds. And the voice actually did record, so thankfully the other people's voices, not just my own, recorded, so that's good. And it's something the party got their they were part of their goal was twofold: to liberate or not really liberate because nobody's still there, but to retake a dwarven stronghold that had been taken over by an elf knight known as Raznor. And Raznor, they did defeat him in the adventure, so that was fun. They hit that goal, and now it's more of kind of a cleanup and learning about things and finding loot, but learning what loot's good to loot and what loot is not good to loot, as it has been brought up in the game. They're doing this for the dwarves, and the dwarves were like, anything not us that you find, you can keep, but do not take anything that is ours. They sent people out further to get help to try to take it back, but the town that the party was in was getting overcrowded with refugees, and therefore they took it upon, well, they were asked, but then they volunteered basically to try to take over the dwarven hold first. But a lot of stuff going on, but basically it was kind of like stuff that belongs to the dwarves. When the dwarves come back, they want it, and so don't take that, but anything else that they might find from the bandits led by this knight Raznor, they're able to get. They did find out that either Raznor himself, or he's working with somebody, is either a diabolist or a summoner, because there were protection circles and power matrices and stuff like that. They experienced a evil version of a clown that could have future implications, and they might find out more of that depending on what they do. But with Palladium, and it is heavily house brewed, a couple of things I'm finding. One is I'm getting into it a little bit more now. Each time I've done these bi-weeklies, I talk about how it's kind of capturing me more, but I do a lot of planning before the game, coming up with a lot of things and giving like detailed and or not necessarily like minute detail, but giving some pretty nice details about certain things that happen. And when it gets into the game, I kind of just like say it real fast, and I need to learn to pace myself more and to slow down a little bit more. When people are talking, I'm fine of just sitting there, but like in battle, I tend to like want to move on because battles do take long. But I think I want to approach it in a more descriptive way instead of just this happens, this happens, this happened, and just stating results, but get some description in it as well. Um, and that's a little different than like when I do Torg and stuff because I try to keep pace, but there again, it's on a plot arc where you go through different, different acts that are composed of scenes, beginning, middle, end, where this doesn't have that. So I want to do that. Another thing that I've really been enjoying with Earthdawn is the fact that as players, unless a die explodes, and that's how we knew the eights exploded, a lot of times you don't see all the numbers. And it'll tell you like how much you make it or miss it by, but it won't tell you a difficulty. And that kind of immerses yourself a little bit more into it, not knowing the numbers. Now, again, this is completely opposite of Torg Eternity philosophy of being transparent with difficulty numbers, etc. But it really gets me immersed into the game more when I don't necessarily know what exactly I rolled and what I need to hit and that type of thing. When it says, "Oh, in the roll 20, the character sheet is like a crazy mathematical thing that I can never possibly even come close to programming," but it's cool. You click on the token and it applies damage, and it'll give you a description like it bounces off the armor in case you hit but did no damage, or the armor absorbs most of the blow and you do a little damage, or the armor deflects a little bit but you do a ton of damage. It tells you, they're wounded, they're unconscious, they're dead, but it doesn't say normally, unless it's affecting a player, it doesn't say like you've done this many points of damage and etc. You rolled this and this is what was the hit. It doesn't get into the detail, and I'm liking that. Now the Palladium character sheet in Roll20 does allow for whispers to be sent to the game master, and I think next adventure I might switch all character sheets to only whisper to me, because I'm finding there's people that are really paying attention to the game mechanics instead of the game itself as a story, and I want this to be more of a story-based game, not they rolled their parry was this, it was a 13 plus 5, that's how they got an 18. Now I don't have a plus 5, so let me look at this level with a sword, they get a plus 2, and at this level, if they're this class, this hand-to-hand, they get this, so then they're a third level soldier or something like that. It's not something that I necessarily want to have going on. Plus, it's a game where there's a lot of whispering going on, and it's something that I found on a virtual tabletop with people typing and being able to whisper me is a lot easier and cooler in my experience as a game master than at the table. At the table, people either just say something and then everybody else has to kind of pretend that they ignore it, but then they're always trying to get it into the game as fast as possible. An example like this is, and it hasn't happened in the virtual tabletop, but I've had it many times where the party split. And yes, I know you're not supposed to split the party, but it happens every once in a while, and a battle's going on here and somebody is over here. Oh, can I hear it? No, you can't hear it. Well, and they'll come up with whatever way that they can think of to go back to the game, or the fight, not necessarily back to the game. In the virtual tabletop with whispers, and I set up on Discord a separate secrets channel that I can just pull people to, and I can go there and we can discuss what needs to be discussed, and then I put them back into the general chat. But I'm using that. Not everybody is saying we do have the one Sir Emery, the troll paladin, going, I am a troll paladin, and very vocal about his beliefs of not hurting unarmed foes or unconscious foe, even though the rest of the party seems to not care anything about what he says. But he is very straightforward of who he is. Other people not so much, and as I've discussed in these before, there is lots of character classes in here that either you don't want people to know what you are, or are just boring. Peasant, squire, scholar, merchant, I think, are optional character classes. Or it just really isn't anybody's business what character class. People don't go around going, I'm a thief. They don't really even go around going, I'm a rogue. They'll just say, I'm an adventurer and I can do certain things. So with that, I want to kind of bring in more of the descriptive combat instead of just rolling a number. You know, I want to start trying to bring in more of description. You know, they come to, you know, the sword is coming very close to you, and if it's just a whiff, I'm just gonna, you know, the sword passes by you easily. And if it's going to hit the armor, but it's really low, say rolling a 5 or 6, maybe even up to a 7 or something, it's just the sword, it looks like it's going to probably hit your armor. And then I'll say, do you want to parry if they can parry, or do you want to dodge? If it's closer to where it's going to hit them, I might say, you're not sure if it's going to hit you or your armor. Do you want to parry or dodge? And then if it's way above their armor, this thing looks like it's definitely, you know, I won't say it will hit you, but I'll say it definitely looks like it's, you know, it really looks like it's going to hit you and not your armor. Do you want to parry and dodge? Instead of just giving numbers. And then when they roll, they should be able to see their rolls, but it will just be me and them seeing the rolls. It won't be the other people, because I have there are certain characters who have them set up for whispers, because it's nobody's business. Certain things aren't other players' business on what's happening in the game. So I think I'm going to make that universal and have all characters, NPCs and stuff, just go to me. And I think hopefully my players trust me enough, because back in the day before virtual tabletops, I had the Game Master screen that I was rolling my rolls behind, so I'm whispering to myself through villain character sheets that they'll trust me now as much as they trusted me before. So in that game, we have had 2 actual deaths. Both were brought back by mysterious circumstances. So I wish I could get into those, and maybe at some time I will, but I might have players that watch this. And just know that there is some balance going on, which is interesting, because a playing card that Pogo the Clown had was the balance card that the party is trying to figure out why this card has a picture of a person holding a balance on it. But there is some balancing going on, so that's an interesting concept. Also, it's something that I do want to make a video. I actually did record a video a few times. It never got quite how I wanted it, but I do want to talk about adding things to a game in some video future content, of how I like adding stuff that's not by the book. Like when in Palladium, to the characters or to the players, I'm like, make your character using this and my supplement, but it's all a rule set. And you know, if you want to switch your character classes, go by the rules in here. But there's certain things that I like as a game master, whether it's based off of crazy stuff that happens in the game, whether good or bad, curses or unknown magic circles that have effects, something like that. Or if it's just something that I think is interesting and might fit, might make the story interesting, or it's part of what's going on in the world that the party doesn't know about, or if the party, or individuals, sorry, not the party, if individuals make certain choices, if they accomplish certain goals for higher powers and such like that, or promises to do things to higher powers, then they might be changed. So things that they do in the game, if you're a watcher and you know everything about here, and even if you had my supplemental rules and you would be saying, hey, wait a second, that's not in the rules, how can they do that? Yeah, they can do it because something happened that allowed them to do that. I like adding stuff like that, because then again, you can't always just put your finger, you know, and go, yep, that's a 5th level warlock, which is the elementalist, or that's a third level witch, or that's a 12th level summoner, fourth level ranger. You won't be able to say that because they'll be doing things that character class should not be doing, and it's just something to add a little mystery to it, give a little more flavor to each of the characters, make them more individual instead of every single wizard's the exact same, every single list is the exact same or close. The differences being skills and what hit points you roll, but knowing if you know the system and knowing what their weapon skill is and what their weapon proficient or weapon type, combat type, hand-to-hand combat type, or etc., and knowing exactly everything that you need to know about them. Hey, wait, they're a fourth level soldier from my calculations. Why are they throwing a magic spell at me? Type thing. Or just interesting certain things like that I want to kind of add, both for the villains and for the player characters, to make things interesting and not just obvious. And that's one of those things, like when there's books like, say, Torg point-based systems from Torg Eternity, Heimars, to what other games out there, when you can pick and manipulate, and you got a bunch of books that you can choose from. Not every character can be even close, but then when you have the level-based games, that it's kind of everything set out in the book, and as long as you know which book to look in, you got it. That's when I tend to like throwing extra strange things in that are different, to keep people on their toes, make the game more interesting, make it a living world instead of just by the book world. Because sometimes villains might have stuff that the PCs don't have, but then let the PCs have stuff, and that's stuff that I, as a game master, sprinkle in the world, and not necessarily something that a player can look at a rule set and choose for their character. What normally happens is they're given a choice, whether it's here's your choice, me as a game master saying, do you want to do this or do you want to do this, or just putting something in the world and seeing what they do with it, like a magic circle. Here's a magic circle. The person who studies circles, they don't know what it is. Somebody steps in it, maybe something will happen, maybe it won't, but they've made the choice to step into it. It's an in character, or again, it could be an out of character. You are presented with a choice. Do you want this to happen, or do you want this to happen? You choose, tell me, and we'll move on with here, and your character is marked in some way. So finding that very fun with Palladium. Again, I was really enjoying Earthdawn. We did have to deal with our permanent death. But next session, we should hit town, hopefully, so that will be interesting. We'll have our first actual downtime. And as I said, I'm getting really excited about downtime, which Earthdawn is the only system that I've ever enjoyed downtime and getting into the nitty-gritty of that. So having said that, I'll go ahead and stop. I am Lehman Crafton Jr., aka Zorbalchan Less Than Guru, and until next time, I will catch you later.